become who we want to be as individuals, and at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
So you can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. Officially with episode 078, we are kicking off season 3 of the Practice Squad pod. Super Bowl is behind us. That means the 2023-2024 NFL season is behind us, and now we have nothing else but to look forward to the 2024-2025 season. Crazy to say it. We have free agency coming up. We have the draft coming up. We have camp coming up. We got preseason coming up. We got fantasy football coming up. And of course, going into the season, we're going to be here every week. We're not going anywhere just because the NFL season's over. In fact, I'd say based off of last year, this is really when we can kind of turn some stuff up and have some fun with the amount of content, what type of content we're putting out, all that good stuff.
If you miss football, come watch our podcast. And then it kind of brings you right back in. You might not be able to watch games, but we're going to break down games. We're going to break down film. We're going to look at NFL prospects in the draft. We're going to look at this year and predict about next year. It's going to be fun. This offseason is going to rock.
I've had a few requests too, and I don't know, Mark, this is the first time I'm tossing this idea at you for UFL coverage. So a few passionate, and I got to think if you're passionate enough to be tuning into an NFL podcast every single week, you're probably passionate enough to watch spring football. And we see spring football guys make it to the show every single year now. I don't know. I mean, I like supporting the Roughnecks personally, being, here in Texas, fun team. Wouldn't support the Dallas team ever and under any situation. So that's kind of where I'm at. How are you feeling?
What if they played against the Cowboys? Then you'd root for them.
Yeah, and the Cowboys.
No, I wouldn't be against it. I have a few buddies that I played with back in college that are playing in different leagues professionally that are still trying to make it up, to the NFL and are doing pretty well. So maybe we could get some of those guys on. There's definitely some. If it's football, it's worth talking about. Also we'll dive in a hell of a lot more into college football in the off season because I think there's a lot to look at. It's gonna look very different next year. The expansion of the playoff. You got Nick Saban retaring, which literally shifts the entire outlook of what college football is. I mean,
power structure.
You have Harbaugh going back to the NFL, like the
Chip
NFL,
Kelly going to OSU too. That was a shocker.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone saw that coming.
The college football world is wide open. Like, who's going to grasp it? Right? There's Texas. There's Ohio State making a comeback. Can Michigan stay on top with a new coach and a bunch of new players? Can Alabama be Alabama without Nick Saban? Is Oregon going to rise up? Like, who's the next? Like, what's the next thing? And I think there's a lot to look at with college football. Because honestly, college football is one of the purest forms of the sport, whether there's NIL problems or not. Like, you got to love college football.
It's a totally different league next year too. I mean, so much changes in the air. With
realignment of the conference. Like, it is a completely new and different thing that we're going to be seeing out of college football next year. And there's a lot to look at, to talk about going into that year. So plenty of that as well. This offseason, if you like football and you miss it, and you want to watch and you want to get a taste of it, but it's not on TV and the spring games aren't getting you what you need, come here.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we got a lot to dive into. Obviously, Super Bowl behind us. Mark came in pretty confident last week, making a case for Kansas City. And sure enough, they end up winning the game in a pretty similar fashion to, I think, what we both anticipated and described. In my betting pool that we talked about, looking at those key matchups that I was talking about, I think that aged pretty well. And not only that, but Casey did win and the under hit. I'm a lot richer than I was 24 hours ago. Pretty stoked on it. So, look, man.
What did I tell you, John? What did I tell you? If you watched last week's episode, I tried to sell John like my life depended on it because I wanted him to ride with me. And I knew that he'd win a lot of money if he was right in the Super Bowl pick because I knew a lot was riding on it for him. I also won a lot of money. Not only in this game, but this year. It was a very hot year for us in betting in our picks. But this Super Bowl, I mean, spot on, John. Like everything we said was spot on. I mean, I had anytime touchdown scores right. I had over under on pass attempts right. It was, I mean, it was literally perfect in terms of betting for me in the Super Bowl, and I hope people followed and rode along to that.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. Starting with the least relevant thing, but something worth talking about. What was your favorite Super Bowl commercial for the game yesterday?
So mine actually it's one. I don't think it was anything special, but the star power in it was like you couldn't deny it. It was the Duncan one with Tom Brady. You had J Lo. You had Matt Damon. You had Ben Affleck. You had that's Boston right there with superstar J Lo in it. I thought it was funny when she was like, "You can stay, Tom," and kicked out Affleck and Damon in it. Like I thought that was pretty good. It was simple. Don't overthink it. Star power, right?
Yeah, definitely a good one. The star power, the outfits they were in for it too. My favorite, which happened very early in the game, was the YouTube Sunday ticket advertisement, where all the Ravens and the Eagles players were birds, and it was like a David Attenborough like nature documentary, but it was football players. I was laughing my ass off at that one. It was super funny. I think it was like AJ Brown is diving into the water and comes out and there's a fish lodged between his helmet. I don't know. I was cracking up with that one. Overall, I would say solid commercials and also pretty solid on the halftime show, which I don't really like Usher that much. He has hits undeniably, but he's just never been some dude that I've, been a massive fan of. I thought he put on one of the best halftime shows that I've seen in a while. Wasn't trying too hard. It wasn't doing a bunch of stupid stuff. It was just, all right, here's all the songs that I'm known for. We're going to dance. We're going to whip out some roller skates for the hell of it. Have some fun. Good to go. Get Lil Jon out there. That always helps, right? I mean, probably the greatest hype man in the world, Lil Jon. He can just shout shit, and it's more hype as a result.
I think overall, it was okay. I don't think it was anything great. Way better dancer than live singer. It seemed like to me.
For sure.
Alicia Keys. I needed more Alicia Keys. She can sing, dude. She's talented. I needed more of that. Needed more Ludacris. Ludacris rocked it when he came on. That was my favorite part of it. And I think his part was a little bit short, but I think it was okay. Usher being all touchy with Alicia Keys was a little weird, kind of threw me off considering that was just, I don't know, that dynamic was really weird. The first couple times he was touching her, it was okay, whatever, it's part of the show. He just kept doing it. The entire time she was performing and not at the piano, he was on top of her.
That would be pretty annoying. Yeah, and so it was Usher and Ludacris together that pretty much put Justin Bieber on, right?
Usher found Bieber through YouTube videos,
and then
Ludacris was his main feature in Baby, which was his biggest hit as a young upcoming still a banger.
Surprised to not see Bieber then based off.
He was at the game.
He was at the game, didn't perform. So I know a lot of people mentioned that. So
he's too big to do a side. He's gonna do the Super Bowl one.
He should be the Super Bowl. Yeah. And man, I hate to say it, but I mean, he released the past 2 albums, pretty good tunes on there.
Bieber's Bieber's one of the best. Bieber's one of the. Hey, you know who also rocked was Posty, doing America the Beautiful.
Phenomenal.
God, he's so special. His voice is so
one thing I love about Post too is he has found this intersection of country, rap, pop, metal. Everybody likes him.
He can do it all, dude.
He's got Ozzy on.
He's so talented. He's so talented.
Yeah, there's so much to like about Post Malone.
Except he's a Cowboys fan.
Except he's a Cowboys.
But I think his dad worked for the Cowboys, so it's okay.
Yeah,
reasonable.
He was born and raised in Dallas, so yeah. But no, I definitely enjoyed his appearance. Yeah, man. I mean, overall, obviously, the Super Bowl, as much as it is a football game, it is a entertainment celebrity spectacle. That is what the Super Bowl. I talked to my dad about it. It was look, if you had the money for it and you had to choose NFC Championship with the Lions in it or Super Bowl with the Lions in it, which one would you really care to put, let's say, it costs $10,000 a ticket or whatever. And he's honestly, probably NFC Championship, because I still feel that feels like a football game, and the Super Bowl, it's man, celebrities everywhere. Like I heard the people in the suites couldn't leave their suites because of the number of high security people once they got seated in there. Just crazy stuff. Obviously would be insane to attend. I'm not saying one or either in either direction, but I did think that was interesting. Like, a lot of entertainment factors that definitely held our attention. Then getting into the game, obviously, like, I think an average sports enjoyer would say that first half was boring. I would say people that are super into the game of football would just say, one, it was defensive, and two, the special teams play was out of this world. Now, did that result in not a whole lot of scoring happening? And so it was kind of boring? Sure. But the thing is it stayed tight. Game was, super close and a little bit more scoring happening in the second half. Like, overall, I was pretty satisfied with how the game went. How do you feel about how that first half started for both teams? How did they play their cards as they were feeling each other out defensively, offensively, like big mistakes, big plays? What do you feel?
Yeah, I thought, a lot of people that say this is boring, like I want to watch like a high pace, high scoring game. You got to respect good football, man. And we were watching good defensive football in that first half. And I will say this, the offenses, as well coached as they are, with Shanahan calling the O for the Niners and Andy Reid and Matt Nagy calling the O for the Chiefs, very sloppy first half offensive football. I mean, the Niners' first drive was clean, then McCaffrey fumbles. The Chiefs finally, the Chiefs started very slow offensively, backing themselves up with penalties and not being able to. The tackles struggled, which we said, right? Early on, the tackles struggled. Chase Young had, he was making his name present, and then Boza all day. I mean, they did a really good job keeping Mahomes in the pocket, making him scramble laterally instead of up and out, or letting him get the edge and extend plays. But yeah, that first half was really sloppy, man. Pacheco fumbled. Very rare for him to fumble. I think it was only his second fumble this year. McCaffrey fumbled. I think that was only his third fumble this year. And that was just in the first half. Very, very sloppy stuff. But like you said, special teams were killing it in the first half. Really good. In all phases, like the coverage on punts, excellent. Like every single punt, like there was a guy right there making the tackle before the returner could even make a move.
Big hits, honestly.
Big hit, like perfectly timed.
Special teams being
perfectly timed. The punts were great. There was not a touchback punt, which is a huge, like, flipping field position in a game like that is gigantic. I thought Spags did an amazing job switching up defensive, like hiding blitzes, disguising blitzes. They played a lot of zone coverage in the beginning, and Brock Purdy, give him credit, picked it apart. Like, Brock Purdy played out of his mind. Brock Purdy played really, really well. He outplayed Mahomes for really 2.5 quarters, almost 3 full quarters.
Yeah.
And you got to give that kid credit. Walking into a Super Bowl, like, with so much pressure on you, and he just, like,
moment did not look very too big for him. Yeah,
very well. I hope he silenced people that try to hate on that guy. Like, I don't understand how you can possibly still say that he's not an elite quarterback with what he accomplished this year. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff, dude. There's obviously a lot of debatable, controversial things about this game, John. I kind of want to just go in chronological order of some of the things that happened. I want to start early on. What did you think of the Kelsey on the sideline after that Pacheco fumble, getting in Andy Reid's face?
Dude.
It was early in the game. He shoved his head coach, who's a Hall of Fame head coach, a legendary guy, an older guy. That seemed a little much to me. Yeah,
that was insane. Put it this way, Mark. I mean, your coach for years was your dad. You know him very well. Very close relationship. I think if you shoved your dad on the sideline during a game, we would not see you the rest of the season. Like that. And like, so there's as many, walls broken down between you and your coach in that situation. And even then, I think there'd be incredibly severe consequences. Obviously, NFL player, different situation, but like Super Bowl, whatever. If you just take that for what it is and not, add the superstar context and the Super Bowl context, like that was insane. Like, it's a line you don't cross. I don't know if he meant it. I think he might have gone up, like, so aggressively up to him that like it just kind of happened that way. Regardless, like you said, Mark, I mean, that is a Hall of Fame coach that is getting up there in age, and you are a professional athlete that is 6.5 feet tall. Like that's insane, dude.
I lost a lot of respect for Travis Kelce in that moment, and there's people that you can make excuses. Oh, he's frustrated. He wasn't getting the ball. He should have been in on that play. He didn't. I don't care what he was pissed about. You can even verbally yelling at your coaches usually is wrong. If you're a player at the level that Travis Kelce is, occasionally, yes, you can raise your voice to a coach, right? Like we've seen Tom Brady do it. We've seen Mahomes do it. Like you can argue with coaches if you're to that pedigree of a player occasionally, right? If it becomes a common thing, it's a problem. You never lay your hands on a teammate or a coach. You don't do it. Especially you don't do it in a moment like that where the whole world's watching. And it was early in the game, and it was still like just seemed like you're panicking. Like it's not. Yeah, you turn the ball over, you fumbled, you're losing the game. It's not going well, but you're very much in this game. Yeah. You know, like I thought that was. And
I mean,
let me tell you
this,
this:
playing lights out too. Like it's like like you said, the games. It's not like the game was getting away from them in any way, shape, or form. They were down by 1 score at the time, right? Like
it was wild to see that. And I'll tell you this: thank God they won, because had they not won, that would be the talk of the media for a while. Like,
well, it's already a meme. like, and
yeah, but it's not like, because they both downplayed it because they won, and because Kelce joked about it after, because Andy Reid is mature and joked about it, and they both downplayed it. It kind of will fizzle out a little bit. But had they not won that game, this would be a very different conversation about that moment, because that was a ultimate sign of disrespect to somebody that you just don't. I don't care who your head coach is. I don't care if it was Brandon Staley. You don't lay your hands on the head coach. Like you just don't do it. Which I thought was crazy.
No, it was, and I mean, and honestly, and I'm not trying to sit here and get on my pedestal too hard, but to me, this year's Chiefs were defined a lot about throwing temper tantrums when the moment felt serious. Which is, it's just unfortunate. Like, I think watching Super Bowl champions carry themselves into next season with that kind of level of, I don't know what you want to call it, entitlement, right? I think to the Kadarius Toney play, and how Mahomes was fuming and gets in Josh Allen's face to tell him about how he thought that call was bullshit, even though it was clearly the right call. He's just obviously upset about how it altered the game. Like, I mean, we've been seeing stuff like that all season from the Chiefs. And look, man, the whole you die a hero or live long enough to watch yourself become the villain. Everybody was rooting for small market, quirky KC with, Andy Reid and his weird offense and this, interesting, unique quarterback with a laser cannon of an arm, Hill, Kelce, all that stuff. And here we are 5 years from now, and there are a lot of people rooting for their demise. And
you keep winning, you're gonna draw hate. You're
become
doing something right. If people hate you if people hate you like people hate the Chiefs right now, you're doing something right. The same thing happened with Brady and the Patriots. The same thing happened to the Bulls. The same thing happened to the Warriors. Like the same thing happened to the Miami Heat, where they had that short little dynasty, if that's what you want to call it. Greatness attracts haters because nobody wants to see sustained greatness because they envy it, and it's jealousy, right?
Right.
And that means you're doing something right when people are trying to find anything to talk about that puts you down and puts you in
Darth
the negative
Vader
light.
now.
And I'll give the Chiefs credit, dude. All year long, they were in the media shit. They are in a Super Bowl hangover. They suck. They'll never get it done. Mahomes doesn't look like an MVP. Kelce's washed up. Andy Reid looks like he's losing it. The defense is playing good, but the offense can't even hit a receiver. They lead the league in drops. All this stuff that they constantly had to deal with. And, not many people really thought that they would be able to pull it together and make the run that they just did. Yeah. I did, but not many people thought that they would be able to pull together. And I honestly, the only reason I really think it is because Andy Reid is a phenomenal coach, and Patrick Mahomes is, I think it's fair to say, he's the most special football player I've ever seen play the game after the Super Bowl. Like, all love to Tom Brady. He's still the GOAT until the whole ring thing, and there's still a lot of career left for Mahomes, and we'll see what happens. But he's the most special player I've ever seen play when you just watch, him play the game, not when you look at their entire body of work. You just watch him play. You put him side by side. Like, Mahomes is so special. Everything he does. I mean, dude, 9-2 when being down 7 or more in postseason games. 9-2 when he's down 7 or more points.
Has more playoff wins than Peyton Manning.
Has more wins in that building than the Raiders have in their new stadium. 3 Super Bowls. He's 28 years old. 3 Super Bowls, 28 years old. Down 10 in his Super Bowl wins against the Niners, against the Eagles, and against the Niners again. He was down 10 in each of those games, came back and won all 3 of those games. It's incredible. And I will say, when they were losing at halftime, I doubled down and bet more on the Chiefs. A lot more.
I felt really good about where my bets were going by the halftime. I felt like, okay, the Chiefs are going to come out here and adjust, and as long as their defense plays as stout as they've been playing, it's probably going to be their game. The 49ers, if they wanted to win that game, they needed to come out further ahead earlier on. Like, that's the only way the 49ers...
Because they punched him in the mouth early. Like, they were moving him around.
Killer, man.
Killer.
I mean, so killer. I mean, totally different situation if that drive, goes a different way. Okay, so we talked about the first half. Second half, obviously, huge defining moment was that special teams punt. I mean, massive for Casey. Again, special teams was the most exciting I've seen it probably in my life in the postseason for NFL. I mean, it was crazy things going on a regular basis for both punt squads. Obviously, yeah, I mean, I think Mahomes kind of figured out the type of defense they were playing a little bit more. Kelsey starts to turn up again. Middle of the field seemed to be there. And then he was starting to utilize his scrambling ability more vertically, right? Like, when some of those plays started to look busted and people were looking confused, he would just take advantage of the situation, go run a first down, and call it. Clock management and that drive to tie the game was pretty masterful. I thought that drive was really, really good. And then, obviously, Mark's TikTok is blowing up about it. Plenty to talk about. Shanahan's overtime decision as well. I just I understand the logic, but I think in a situation like that, you don't want to have KC in their head. We have 4 downs every single time. Like, that's just not an easy situation to play defense in. So
yeah, I'm gonna backtrack it to like you talked about the punt that hit the heel of a 49ers player. I want to clarify that that's inexcusable to happen, and it wasn't the player who it hit's fault. It's on the punt returner. I'm a former punt returner. I did that in high school, did that in college. If you're not going to fair catch a short punt, right, and you can tell right off the foot if it's going to be short. Sometimes it's a little tougher to tell, but that thing only landed about, I'd say, 15 yards in front of McLeod, the returner. And the second that you decide that you're not going to go catch it, and you have to make this decision quick, you scream Poison or Peter, or most people have like a word that they scream, and they point to where the ball is, and the people that are blocking for you run towards the sidelines. Get the hell away from the ball because you're not returning it anyway. Leave your block. Don't worry about it. Get the hell out of the way. He called that so late, and you can see him pointing it out and probably calling Peter or whatever it is. But he called it so late that his teammate didn't have a chance to react. So, and they don't know where the ball is. They're blocking for you. Like, it's your job to clear them out of the way and make that decision and be decisive. He didn't do that. Not only that, he compounded his mistake. When it hit the guy, he was the first one to see that it hit his own player, and he went to pick it up and keep running instead of just jumping on the ball. And so then he fumbled it a second time. Inexcusable, really. I mean, I get there's a lot of pressure in a Super Bowl, and, who am I talking about it? Like, I'm not playing the Super Bowl, but you've gotta, like, I know what's right to do in that situation. I've done it in games that are obviously not as meaningful as a Super Bowl, but you gotta make that play. And if you do make the first mistake, you can't compound it with the second mistake. If you do make the first mistake, get your ass on the ball, live to fight another day, recover the ball. So that was a huge play because the Chiefs scored the very next play, unguarded MVS. Like, in the second that happened, you're like, oh shit, here we go. I will say, before we get into the Shanahan thing, I think all the time when you watch these Mahomes comeback games, there's a turning point, and it's usually when he runs the ball. And like, there was a play, John, I was like 3rd and 3. He scrambled. He was coming to his left. He pump faked a couple times, and then he lowered his shoulder to get a first down. I don't know if you remember which one, but he got up and he had kind of like that mean mug look on his face, and Kelsey came over and kind of hit him. It's like right when I saw that, I think it was before they had taken the lead too. Right when I saw that, I was like, yeah, this thing's going the other way quickly. Like, once he gets that like swagger look on him, that like, hey, you messed with the wrong person, And if you watch the quarterback documentaries on Netflix, you saw him do this several times. He just gets like in a different mentality once he gets that hit, once he lowers his shoulder and delivers something. Once the physicality part of it comes out for him and he's just being like a tough, hard-nosed quarterback, I think he wants to be that. And it only comes out in the postseason because he's smart about his health. Once that happened, it was like, okay, this is the moment. Like, this is the turning point for them. And from that point on, the Chiefs offensively were rolling. The play calling was great. Andy Reid, give him credit for adjusting to what the Niners were doing. They adjusted their protection, did a lot more chip protection from tight ends, from running backs to hold Boza, to hold Young. A lot more sight adjust, quick adjustments behind pressure. Mahomes got the ball out sooner. A lot of design mesh crossing routes because the Niners played a lot of man-to-man with two high safeties, so they would just do these crossing routes and run away from people because Rashid Rice and Kelsey are faster than those safeties and linebackers that were trying to cover them. Just really, really great adjustments. And they honestly outcoached Shanahan and the Chiefs schematically, and then we'll get into this decision. But outside of scheme, not only did he get outcoached outside of scheme and he kind of left the run game and, and he did this in his choke in the 28-3 game with Brady when he was the OC for the Falcons. Same thing.
I was going to get there, man. Shanahan, unfortunately, this is going to keep haunting him as he makes it to the Super Bowl and he blows a lead bad.
10-point lead, and then a 28-3 lead. He's partially responsible as the play caller for all of those. And offensively, when you have a lead, you can blame the defense all you want, but you gotta continue to put pressure on the other team. You have to know getting first downs, getting points. You know what I mean?
Which ironically, Shanahan, is known outside of Super Bowls as one of the best coaches to be playing with a lead. He knows how to hold on to a lead. That's what the 49ers are built on usually. And yet they make it to the Super Bowl, and every single time they somehow just find a way to not sustain exactly what the entire team's built around, which is keep that offensive pressure on, keep setting up the play action, keep the run game strong so that it doesn't matter if we're up by 3 points or 20 points. It's going to be damn hard for you to come back in the fourth quarter. And obviously, all three of these games that we're referencing, that's exactly what happened. I really respect the shit out of Kyle Shanahan. I like this 49ers team a lot. I said that a bunch of times last week, and that's why it's frustrating to be man, this is going to be a monkey on your back until it's not. And, it's crazy to see him flub all three of those moments the way that he did. But, go ahead and talk about this overtime situation because it's, obviously kind of the talk of the town right now.
Yeah, so I posted a little TikTok about it, just a 1-minute rant, but I didn't really get to explain it in extended detail. And there is plenty to unravel about this decision. So first of all, I want to be honest and say that I was not aware of the postseason overtime rule change. When they went out, when the Chiefs kicked that field goal to tie the game, and it was going to overtime, I was watching the game with my dad. We both were like, okay, this sucks. It's going to come down to a coin toss. This is such a great game. It's really become a special classic game here. And then they started talking about how they changed the rules. I was not aware of that. I'll be completely honest. I myself was not aware of it. Seems to me like Shanahan and most of this 49ers team also was not aware of it. I honestly think that might be the case. Both teams get a chance to have the ball, no matter what happens. If you get the ball and you score a touchdown, the other team obviously has to match those points to keep the game going. If you kick a field goal, the other team has to kick a field goal. If the other team gets the ball back, scores a touchdown, the game is over, right? So Shanahan and the Niners win the toss. Okay, he calls tails, it's tails. They make the decision. There is actually no benefit, not one that I can think of, to taking the ball first. A lot of people in the TikTok comments about this are saying, well, their defense was gassed, their defense was tired, they were just on the field for a long 2-minute drill, and they just got driven all the way down, and they're kind of, demoralized and trying to find their breath. Do you know how much time went from the end of that regulation to actual, real, I'm talking real time, not if I started a stopwatch, the second that they, clock
probably
hit
close
0,
to 10
0,
minutes, right?
Probably longer.
Yeah.
You had commercial break, you had a coin toss, you had another commercial break, and then you kicked the ball off. So we're looking at between 10 and 15 minutes of rest, okay? And let's keep in mind, it's the damn Super Bowl. You'd have to kill me to have me for me to be thinking about, oh man, I'm tired, I don't know. it's the Super Bowl, dude. Like, you're numb. Like, your adrenaline is at the all-time high that you can ever be at. That is such a bullshit thing. Well, our defense was gassed. I wanted to give them a series, And then his other explanation was, well, if we score and then they score, we want to be able to get the last laugh and have the third possession. It's like, dude, you're thinking way too. You're outthinking this whole thing.
Right.
It's not going to it almost never gets to a third possession. We've never even seen that happen, I don't think. Like, it's crazy to me. I don't think people realize, and Shanahan as a play caller, if you've never called like offensive football in your life, this might not make sense to you. But let me put it this way, in simple terms. It's 1st and 10. You have 4 downs to get a first down in football, right? Barring any penalties or anything happening. Most of the time, if you don't get the first down within the 3 downs and it's 4th and more than 2 or 1 or 2 yards, you're probably going to punt the ball to let your defense continue to protect the scoreboard and play field position. When going into the drive in every single 1st and 10, 1st and 10, 1st and 10, you know that you have now 4 snaps guaranteed because you can't punt it, because if you punt it, the game's over. You have to get first downs. It transforms how you're calling plays. You now have a whole added play each time to move the chains down the field. You can be incredibly aggressive on first down if you want. You can run the ball on 3rd and 7 if you want and get it to 4th and 2, because you're going to see a softer defense. You can run play action knowing that, you can run it 2 times in a row if you want, knowing that you're going to have that extra down. And the Chiefs, several times on that game-winning drive, used 4th down conversions, and they used 3rd and tough and made it 4th and very reasonable several times, taking advantage of the situation. You can't tell me that, it's not the only reason they lost the game in overtime, but it is a huge part of it, because you give Andy Reid, a genius play caller, mastermind like that, an extra down every single time. It's already hard enough to stop him in 3 downs.
Right.
And Kyle Shanahan, as a head coach as long as he's been and as good of one as he is, there's no excuse to not knowing and understanding that. And I honestly don't know. Maybe he didn't know the players are coming out and saying that they never went over it. And meanwhile, the Chiefs players are coming out and saying they reviewed this.
I was going to say that's a failing in of itself, because I was aware of the rule change. I was actually shocked to hear, not only from the players, but even just fans or spectators that were saying they weren't aware of the postseason.
Yeah, I didn't know about it.
That Bills game, that insane Bills game, is the direct reason why this overtime rule change was initiated. And it wasn't this past offseason, it was the offseason before that. It was after, the season offseason.
I guess we just haven't seen a game big enough where it's happened.
We've seen it once since the rule, and it was sometime last year, and it was not the Super Bowl, obviously. It was some other. But yeah, so those are the new postseason rules, where it's not sudden death for a touchdown. The other team is going to get the ball no matter what. So yeah, I mean, to hear Shanahan say that he didn't know that's what it was crazy to me.
Well, he never admitted that he didn't know, but the players
were saying
led us to believe that maybe Shanahan knew it, but he sure as hell didn't communicate it to his team, because the Chiefs players said
that's the players' fault too. I mean, this is your job, man.
A little bit, John, but honestly, it's on the coaches to educate their team and to go over situational football. Andy Reid and the 100%. Chiefs, the players knew about it. You know why? Not because they went and studied it on their own, because Andy Reid brought in officials and said, hey, go over the rule changes for this year, go over some examples of what could happen, and then they practiced that situation. The Chiefs actually had a period of practice throughout the year that they would practice like once or twice every so often, where it's overtime in a playoff game, we need a touchdown, and we're going for 2. So they would practice that period and already have these 2-point plays practiced out that they've been doing for months. So they knew the second even if the Niners scored, they knew they were going to go down the field, score, and then they were not going to settle for tying and giving them the ball back. They were going to go for 2. And that makes sense. And Shanahan probably should have known that. Like, I don't know. It's crazy to me. Huge mistake. People that are trying to justify it, the only even close to plausible excuse he has is that the defense was gassed, but I'm calling bullshit on that, because they literally had 15 minutes of real time to recover and rest. Any of those people that are complaining about that, go outside, run 10 sprints, get gassed, and then start a stopwatch and wait 15 minutes and see if you're still gassed. Right. You're usually recovered. I don't even care if you're obese. You're probably recovered. Like
Right.
these are professional athletes. It's what they're paid millions of dollars to do. It's the biggest
Not
game
to
in the
mention
world.
with like a cast of trainers sitting there ready to go for their every need. I mean, you got
with
you got
oxygen
massagers,
masks,
you got oxygen
and
masks,
dude, it's
you got-
insane. Like there's and they have substitutions. Like you can like these defenses are reloading defensive linemen, and it's crazy, dude. Like I don't know, I can't believe it on a stage that big to mess up like that. And it's really it was just a dumb error. Like that's all it is on the coach, and you can. Fred Warner like literally got all excited and said the receive thing like he thought it was, oh, we're getting the ball, it's over, we're gonna go down and score. Like that's what I think that a lot of the team. I was curious to see what would have like if the Niners would have scored a touchdown on their first drive, would they have like acted like they won the game?
Oh no!
You know what I mean?
So bad, yeah.
Thank God that didn't happen because that would have really showed the truth. But I honestly, I don't know. I don't know if Shanahan was aware. I assume he was. He just didn't communicate it to his players. And Fred Warner, the captain who went out there for the coin toss, clearly didn't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of these other players have come out and said that they weren't aware of the rule either, which means either he didn't know about it as a head coach or he didn't communicate it to his team, that's equally as bad.
Mismanagement.
Equally
Yeah,
as bad.
It's mismanagement in either way. But yeah, so obviously crazy ending to that game. Like I said, first half kind of, you could call it a snoozer just depending on what your perspective on special teams and defense kind of being a defining factor in football. But yeah, I mean, great, really entertaining Super Bowl between really solid teams. And Mark, I think you're right too. I just want to take a second to give Brock Purdy his flowers because I do think that he rose to the occasion. Moment wasn't too big for him. Played good football, accurate passer, minimized mistakes. And I think anybody that's coming away from this game saying that he's like not the guy is absolutely insane. If you're trying to compare him to Patrick Mahomes, no, he's not Patrick Mahomes. Guess what? Nobody is on this planet. And to lose to Patrick Mahomes, who has a hell of a lot of experience in this situation at this point in his career versus Brock Purdy, who's there for the very first time. I mean, I thought he did his job. I thought they hung in there, and I would attribute coaching, 10 times more before I attribute this loss to any decision or plays that Brock Purdy made personally. So
he gave his team a chance to win. He put his team in position to win the game, and other things failed him, but he did enough for the Niners to win this game on his own, and totally. I think he can hold his head high knowing that. One other key special teams thing, John, we didn't cover was the blocked extra point. You know who blocked that extra point?
No.
Mike Dana, my former teammate from Central Michigan. Michigan grad transfer. He got his hand up and blocked it. It was a very low kick, but that was arguably just as big of a play in that game as any other play. Totally. Because keeping it at a 3-point game, keeping it at a 3-point game.
That's how they tied it easily.
That's how they tied it,
Right. And they had enough time on the clock probably to run 2 plays if they had to. But obviously
it's harder to score a touchdown than to kick a chip shot. You know what I mean?
Harder. Exactly. So, and Butker's about as automatic as they come at this point in his career. So, look, we got one last thing on the agenda for this episode because since last episode, all of the NFL honors were announced. And I think Mark and I next week are going to go and kind of do our own award ceremony for certain things, situations, players. Some will correlate one for one with what the NFL awards, and I think we might make up a few of our own as well. So starting with the MVP conversation, obviously this is regular season only, and that's an important grain of salt to take when discussing any of these accolades that anybody got.
Which is dumb to begin with, if we're being honest.
Especially if you announce them the 3 days before the Super Bowl. If that's the case, why don't we consider the postseason, right?
You should.
Yeah, so... Anyways, Lamar coming out as the MVP, I personally think this is the one that made the most sense. And me and Drew had a long conversation. If, there's a quarterback that's had a really strong season, good winning record, or, most winningest record or whatever, that's who this award has traditionally gone to. Lamar, checked both those boxes. Statistically, had a really solid season, and they were the most winning team in the regular season. Makes sense, right? Aaron Rodgers awards, whatever. So second one for Lamar. I personally, I'm struggling to think of a player that was more valuable in the regular season than Lamar. I think there's a couple other quarterback arguments you can make, but this one didn't surprise me. Not sure if I would change it.
Josh Allen. That's all I'll say. I think Josh Allen crushed him in numbers. Had an amazing turnaround, taking the Bills all the way up to the 2 seed. He just did so much for his team, dude, and his stats were so much better than Lamar's. And with not as good of a defense, with his defense banged up, not as good of a run game, I just think Josh Allen did way more for his team and was way more valuable to the Bills than Lamar was to the Ravens, in my opinion.
Fair enough. This is the one that I have stewed over the most. Coach of the Year, going to Stefanski. Look, to have the season that they did with the roster problems that they did, Nick Chubb blowing out his knee, obviously Watson going out for the year, having to start 4 different quarterbacks and still being a playoff team, totally understand it. And I get that these awards are kind of given in a year vacuum. And Mark, I'm sure you know what I'm going to say. If you look at the body of work, the improvement that's made, all the things that go into that, I struggle to see how this award doesn't go to Dan Campbell personally. And that's the problem, is maybe the Lions in a vacuum this year, you could say that Stefanski had a better situation, but I mean, Detroit's winning football for the first time in 30 years. Like, I think you consider that it's kind of, and honestly, a lot of Browns on these awards that we're going to go through, all things considering, given the fact that they didn't win a playoff game this year.
John, you could argue Dan Campbell, and I agree he's ahead of he should be ahead of Stefanski. But you know who I think should be ahead of both of them? DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans, when you compare him head to head with Stefanski, first of all, he beat him in the playoffs,
right? With
a rookie quarterback and a rookie of the year. I mean, he drafted 2-3, and both of them were offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. Right. And he turned around. I mean, the Texans franchise, man, like, you talk about the Lions struggling. The Texans are a newer franchise, but they have also struggled greatly for most of their existence. And
I mean, they speed ran the Lions
team,
rebuild.
Dude.
Like, literally speed ran the rebuild.
DeMeco Ryans walked in that building, and they won a playoff game in year 1. Dan Campbell, it took 3 years. Like, you gotta. Right. I'm not trying to discredit Dan Campbell. He's my second guy in this vote, right. And you could easily argue, and I would not bitch if he had won this, but I will complain because I think not only should he have gotten it ahead of Kevin Stefanski, but I also think DeMeco Ryans did a much better job with what he and Stefanski did a great job, like you said, John. You hit it, you crushed it. Like, his team got obliterated with injuries. The Browns were up against it all year long in a very tough division with a hard schedule, with Joe Flacco at quarterback. And they accomplished more than anyone thought they would. Give them credit, but was it the best coaching job of anyone in the league? No. I think DeMeco Ryans and Dan Campbell did much better than Kevin Stefanski this year. So very weird. And that even if you don't take playoffs into account, I think that.
Totally. Now, deserving of comeback player of the year, though, is Joe Flacco. This man went from watching games on his couch to, making it to really helping drive this team to a playoff push.
This award is crazy, John, because you know who he's going up against? Someone who died and came back to life. Yeah. You know the only other person that did that? Jesus Christ himself. Like, how are you about to
Here's the problem, Mark. This is not called comeback person of the year. It's comeback player of the year. And
Hamlin's a player, dude. Hamlin's a player.
He sure is, and he did not.
He died on the field in front of everyone, and still, the fact that he even walked, the fact that he even breathes on his own.
Here's the problem, Mark. You have to play like at least a couple meaningful downs of football this season, and the only down that I can remember Damar Hamlin running the entire season.
Negative play.
Probably cost the team the playoff victory, if we're being honest. I mean, that fake punt was atrocious, and it was like a stupid storybook, like, oh, let's get the guy that died out here to go and redeem himself on this fake punt, and he gets freaking crushed.
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy, John? Is all Damar Hamlin had to do was live throughout this next season and not fuck up in a big way, in a big moment, where a lot of eyes, and he would have won the award. His odds to win this award, John, were like minus 5,000. Like, he was like a guarantee. It didn't matter. I thought Joe Flacco could literally cure cancer, and he wasn't going to get comeback player of the year this year. Damar Hamlin gets stuffed on that fake punt, and all of a sudden it's like, he's fucking done. Like, his moment, he blew it in his big moment.
He was a healthy scratch, I think 12 out of 17 games.
But he was going to get the award literally no matter what, as long as he didn't make a mistake. And honestly, it wasn't even his mistake. It was a horrible play call. There was nowhere to run. But he was the one who had the ball. He was the one who got tackled. He was the one we all saw not make the play. and it cost him Player of the Year, no doubt about it. And Joe Flacco deserves it. He literally is, and he was damn near retired, never going to hear about him again. He comes out and he put up MVP numbers the times that he was in the games he played. Yeah. So, yeah, he deserves it. But the fact that he's getting compared to Damar Hamlin, who literally died in front of all of our eyes in primetime football and is playing still, it's crazy. Like, what would you, if I went into the season and said, yeah, dude, this guy died last year and he's going to play again this year, you think he wins Comeback Player of the Year?
Yeah,
you probably say yes.
And a 999 out of 1,000 people are instantly going to go, well, who else is going to win?
Who else is going to win? Oh, Joe Flacco because he threw for 300 yards a few games in a row? Whatever. Like, this guy died and came back to life, dude. Also, Baker Mayfield could have been in this conversation.
100% could have been. Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And
on
honestly,
on a much lighter note, Baker Mayfield, he didn't die either, but
DeMar's alive, so we're good.
The media almost killed Baker, though. They tried to kill him. They were very, very tough on him.
They made Baker the heel, and somehow the guy that, sexually assaulted like 30 women was not as problematic as Baker Mayfield, who kind of has an ego.
Baker gets so much shit. Yeah.
Dude, poor guy. Well, hey, it sounds like things are looking good in Tampa. I'm very happy for him, and wishing him a long and prosperous rest of his NFL career. Offensive Player of the Year. Christian McCaffrey. I think this one's pretty undisputed. I think most people were saying Christian McCaffrey should even be in the MVP conversation. I mean, since this man has been healthy basically the past 2 years, he is undisputably the best running back in football. I don't think there's any conversation that needs to be had around it. He is a weapon. I don't think anybody's arguing this one. If I had to, elect somebody for it, this would be my pick personally.
The only other guy that was on track to get this award, I mean, obviously you could put like some of the other quarterbacks in that conversation. It's always going to be skewed to them. But Tyreek Hill was on track, and his injury kind of screwed him. Tyreek Hill was going to have over 2,000 receiving yards, and had the Dolphins continued the way that they were looking like they were going to continue, had he not gotten hurt, I think that you could have a debate for it. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey does it all, dude. Blocks, catches balls out of the backfield, is the best pure rusher running back in the league as well. Changes direction, power backs, can run away, can separate from you. He does everything, man. He's literally a jack of all trades and totally deserves this award. And I'm happy for the guy. A guy that's battled injury most of his career finally finds his home in San Francisco where he can really shine, stay healthy, and get behind a great O-line with a great running play call.
And that's been massive for his career, man, because Carolina's O-line was,
and he had great years there too. Like he was,
and he had great.
He
years,
was an MVP. He was an MVP. He was an MVP candidate in Carolina a couple times.
I think so. But where I was going with that is that his seasons always got cut short because he didn't have the best blocking, and I think that led to increased number of injuries. Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. I think most people can get on board with this one. I think you could make an argument for Snead. I would say he was truly the only true lockdown corner this entire season. He was
pretty damn good.
He was really good.
You could argue T.J. Watt. His numbers,
his regular season numbers were absolutely disgusting.
His numbers were better than Myles Garrett directly when you compare them in almost every category.
I did see though that T.J. Watt had the lowest double team rate out of all sack leaders, which I thought was interesting.
Interesting. Also, the Steelers didn't win as many. It wasn't like. Right. I guess they were like basically equal to the Browns. They both lost first round. But Myles Garrett was so good this year. It's tough to say.
This year.
He did so much for that defense, and T.J. Watt. You could argue, definitely.
For sure.
Either one of those guys gets the award. I'm not going to complain. Like I think they're right there. I think it's 1A, 1B. It's tough that you have to give it to one guy. It's one of those awards where it's so close, and they both were so good, and have been so good for a long time. It's tough.
No, I definitely agree with that. Offensive Rookie of the Year, C.J. Stroud. I think everybody saw this one coming from a mile away. Honorable mentions that I do think are deserving of having conversations about. Two of them, Puka Nacua, Sam Laporta, both respectively had some of the best rookie seasons at their respective positions
of all time.
Sam Laporta was the first tight end in about 35 years to be TE1 as a rookie. I think it was like 1980 something that the last time that a rookie tight end was TE1. This is using fantasy points, by the way, so you can, obviously that skews heavy towards what statistical season he had, but I digress. And then Puka Nacua, obviously breaking
Puka
the
had a
rookie
legendary
record.
season.
Yeah, incredible.
Legendary season. And I mean, you could even throw Jahmyr Gibbs in there. He was kind of a late bloomer in the year, but he was outstanding as well. There was a lot of great rookies. And
one of the better offensive rookie classes that I remember personally. I mean, there was a lot of good players that could have been up for this award, and a lot of key contributors very early on. So yeah, I gotta love that. And then defensive rookie of the year. There was a lot of good ones here too, honestly. But I think Will Anderson makes sense. Double-digit sacks. I mean, Houston again. That turnaround is really notable. I think he's a match made in heaven for D'Amico Ryans. Lots. I mean, he's already playing like he's a 5-year vet. That's kind
which
of
is what they said when he was coming out in the draft process. Yeah, right. Saban said that. A lot of guys said it. He was so ahead of his time mentally that they knew he'd come in and not play like a rookie.
Yeah. So makes sense there. And then did I grab all the major awards? I mean, I don't know if you know anything about these guys' charity life, but Walter Payton Man of the Year. So.
A lot of these guys do. A lot of these guys do a lot, so it's hard for that award is
I'm just
tough.
Being funny.
Jalen Carter, you could argue in that defensive player of the year, rookie player of the year. He had a great season, dude. Dominant season. But not a ton of rookies that stood out defensively from this draft class, man.
No, I don't think so. So, yeah, man. I mean, that's basically it for this episode. Now I'm thinking about it. We got next week. Like I said, we're gonna do a little bit more season recapping. Last week we pulled up all our receipts and had to face those and see what takes aged poorly and what takes aged well. Obviously, next week is gonna be less of that and more just talking about key moments, where opinions were at particular points in the season and how things ended up, teams that were able to kind of flip their narratives around, KC being one of a few different teams that didn't look great halfway point, then, totally flip things around, Green Bay, things like that. Big headlines, big moments, all that good stuff. Gearing up for season 3. I mean, we got free agency right around the corner, mere, 4 or 5 weeks away here. And then obviously draft shortly after that, which we went very hard for the draft last year, and we want to double those efforts this year. So I'm pumped up, man.
You guys can expect to see, just so you guys have an idea of what's coming here in the near future on the Practice Squad pod. We've got obviously free agency talk, and we will continue to do weekly episodes with updates, current events, because really news in the NFL never stops. There's going to be offseason drama. There's going to be trade rumors, trade demands. There's going to be free agency signings. There's going to be draft prep, analysis. We're going to do draft prep with film on specific players, usually some of these more controversial players, quarterbacks, maybe some of the top receivers, running backs, pass rushers, stuff like that. We're going to do film breakdowns of those players here, so you're going to be able to get a full analysis of what your team might be getting, draft projections. We're going to rate the draft after the draft. Each team, once they draft, we're going to rate their picks. We're going to go through and say why it was good, why it was bad, why it's a good fit, why it's a bad fit. I'm going to go do, with John, some film breakdown of this past, some of the games from this past season, some of the bigger games. We're going to probably start with the Super Bowl coming up here soon. Get some of the most, important plays from the game, some plays maybe you didn't notice were important, some little details, some coaching errors, some coaching highlights, and break down film from some of the bigger games that a lot of people watch, whether that's playoff games, whether that's maybe some rivalry games that happen in the regular season. But we're going to go through and do that as well. So a lot of cool stuff coming. We're really excited about the offseason. Gives us more time to do that kind of thing. And we love football, so we're going to find a way to continue to make it relevant because it's king. Even in the offseason, football is king. And
what else
that's
you
the
love,
goddamn
Mark?
Truth.
And we'll end it on this. You know what else you love? Standardized tests. And you have a debt to pay that is now over a year old, actually.
That's true.
And so, look, I threatened after the Super Bowl was over, if Mark didn't take it upon himself to actually go and sign up for this frickin' test, that we would do it on stream, and we would just sit here and screen share and walk Mark through signing up for the ACT, because he's been avoiding it, and he can't even say he hasn't been at this point. He's been actively avoiding it.
I'm not denying anything. I'm not denying it.
Yeah, so inverse Lannister, he's not repaying his debts currently, and so I gotta, function his collections effectively and make sure that it gets paid, because I need to see a man in his late 20s taking a test for juniors in high school. It's got to happen.
If they even allow it, which we don't know for sure if they will.
Right.
If they allow it, yeah. If they allow it, I'm down. If not, I'll find a way to take the damn test.
Well, we can pivot. Mark is very well connected in the public schooling community, given the fact that his dad is a teacher and a lot of the coaches he works with are as well. So I'm sure we'll get you plugged in, buddy.
We'll get plugged in.
All right.
And I was wrong. And I want to say this, John, on a positive note, because we can end the episode like that. It's great, but we'll say I was very wrong about that take, and that was a last year's take. This year, we were pretty spot on with our takes. We've grown. We've been right a hell of a lot more than we were wrong. I think I finished at 49-23 in my picks, in my best bets picks this year. That's pretty damn notable. So, crazy, yes, man. I will be taking the ACT. Yes, I will pay my debts for a wrong take from 2 years ago now. But I think I got better this year. You just made me much more
realize, I think I just ended perfectly at 500 with the Super Bowl picks as well, because I think I was 34 and 36. So there we go. And came in when it matters. Won the big money. Like I said,
did you do the under as well?
Yeah, I took.
So you went under. You went under and
under. Yep.
Yeah. So you were. Listen, if you go 500 in your best bets picks, you know what that means. You are not a loser, and I'm even going to count that as a winner. Because it's tough to do. Most people are negative when they finish a season.
Vegas has to make their money somehow. So
I'll tell you this though, you know how Vegas doesn't make money? When people follow, subscribe, and listen to our takes and then ride with us. That's how you win money. That's how you beat Vegas. That is how you beat the system. Okay.
And you can say thank you to us by buying some merch. By the way, helps us.
Some merch. Subscribe. Follow. Comment. I don't care if you comment hate. You can comment how ugly we are. I don't really care. But you should support us some way, because if you listen to this episode 50 minutes worth through, why not? Why not go and toss us a hate comment or maybe a love comment? Spread love in the world. Too much hate in the world. Spread some love.
And with that, kicking off season 3, we're excited to ride with you guys for yet another year. Really appreciate all of the support. We've had a lot of progress this year, for real. We wanted to end the season around 500 subscribers. We bested that quite a bit. View counts looking good, all that good stuff. We appreciate the support thus far greatly, and we hope to continue to deliver on some pretty solid football content for the rest of the season. I think this goodbye has been like 4 minutes now, so we'll wrap it up there. See you guys next week. Peace.
See you guys.